I just heard everything go. And in that moment, I knew exactly right when it happened that my season was done.
If you're conditioning your mind for positive, that's what I really love what you just said. You're training your mind to be positive and see the positive.
Every day I unpack my mind into my journal. And so it brings me right there to the then and now. And like, what am I doing now to get better? Because you make so many decisions every day that affect you over time, even though you can't see it. I had gone to the ceiling thinking, this is all I can do. But really, it's like, no, there's more time in the day. I think a lot of people kind of freeze at the edge of the cliff, but it's like, no, just jump. You can learn on the way. People are a lot more open when you're more open. When times get tough, that's when you got to put fuel on the fire.
Welcome back to the Daily Mastermind. George Wright III here. I'm your host with your daily dose of inspiration, motivation, and education. And I'm joined today by a really special guest, Bronson Kafusi. How you doing, bud?
Oh, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad. I mean, we met through some mutual friends, and I tell you, I'm excited to get into some really cool stuff because just for those of you that don't know Bronson, he's an NFL player, mindset coach, investor. He was an All-American high school athlete, went to BYU, drafted into the NFL. It was back in 2016, right?
Yeah.
And, went to play for the Ravens, on with the Jets and Packers. And now he's a free agent and transitioning into a pretty successful investing and business career. So we have a lot of stuff to unpack in a very short period of time. So thanks for being here, man. I'm really excited to be able to talk with you about stuff.
Oh, no, thanks. I'm excited. I'm excited to, share my story and some cool experiences.
People, let's maybe start by going back a little bit because people love that, American dream story, right? It's like, growing up, high school, your dream and goal of going to the NFL. And so let's kind of go back and could you give us a little bit of a backdrop on your journey to that? And then we can kind of unpack the rest, but give us some of your background and help people to understand kind of who you were growing up.
Yeah, sure. So I would say the first thing to note is my dad moved here from Tonga when he was 9 years old. And he, played rugby growing up. And the high school coaches saw him playing rugby with all his brothers. He has six brothers. And you should come play football. So he's jumped in and started playing football. And he kicked off the whole football world for my
The
family.
legacy. Yeah.
Everyone, like from him on, I mean, we've had over 20 plus first cousins, uncles and aunties play college
Wow.
football. And so he set the tone. And for me, I mean, he played in college, played in the NFL, and then became a coach. And so I grew up around the game. It was inspired by all his players. They were always nice to me, always had me around as a little boy, running around. And I just, I didn't really realize that football could turn into, a really lucrative career and um, paper school and things. But about in high school, that's when it hit me that, oh my gosh, you can play this sport and go, get your school paid for, all of that.
Yeah.
And that's all I thought of it. Each level kind of changed. I get to college and it hits me, oh my gosh, I can get drafted into the NFL, and so
Did you have, I mean, if he was a coach and a player, like, did you have a real discipline structure growing up or like, what did you have to do to really kind of, cause I don't want to make it sound like, the people are listening, they're like, oh man, they had like 20 people in the family all go to the NFL. I'm sure it's a little bit more difficult than that, but what was your structure growing up? Like, was it just daily discipline type of stuff with the fam or what?
yeah, I would say there's some principle, like really core principles that, were instilled in me when I was younger. And, a lot of people, this is kind of crazy, all of that family history and things. I was recruited as a tight end and my dad was a defensive line coach. And my dad, didn't offer me a scholarship because, he's very, he wanted me to earn everything. And he actually became my coach in college. But
Wow.
because of that, it was harder.
Yeah.
I had to go harder every day. I had to do extra. There's no favoritism. When we watch film and I make good plays, he wouldn't really say good job. He was just kind of quiet. And so for me, I took that as, a compliment because I know,
You had
I'm
to
my job.
adjust. Yeah.
Yeah. So
But it's probably harder on you when you weren't making the good plays. So,
exactly, exactly. And
so
yeah,
no benefits there at all.
yeah, yeah. So, but you know what? For me, it works for me because um I enjoyed the challenge. I think that's one thing that, separated me was I enjoyed the challenge of, waking up every day and getting the most out of every day and pushing myself every day. And so and it was in everything. And so I think that was one thing that kind of separated me as I was going through high school and college. I loved all of that. And
Yeah.
it was awesome to, you know, be able to experience all that at every level.
Yeah.
Take it.
Well, and a lot of times, you're in such a routine. I found this with a lot of really successful people that I know or have interviewed or done business with, is that your mind is so conditioned to success principles and daily rituals. We talk about that kind of stuff here, that it's almost just automatic for you. But people don't recognize and realize the structure and discipline that really goes into play, because it's people that are structured and disciplined make it look easy to a certain degree, right? So, and obviously it wasn't, which kind of leads me to a really important question I was going to ask you. So you get drafted into the NFL, and your rookie year, you break your ankle,
Yep.
and I would love to know. So you go from this high of being, drafted and reaching kind of a pinnacle of what someone would say is a dream come true,
Mhm.
and then you break your ankle. I mean, walk us through that. Like, what happened in your mindset? What did you do? Because that to me would be like a devastating thing when you just hit your dream. What happened there?
And you're absolutely right. Draft night, it's the high of highs. You get a call on the phone. Hey, this is the Baltimore Ravens. We're drafting you right now. And everyone's ecstatic. Your family, you just can't believe it. It's like surreal. And then to go to, fast forward like 100 days later, 120 days later, and I'm on the ground, my ankle's dislocated and my leg is spiral fractured all the way up. And I
How did this happen? Was this at a practice or a game or?
Yeah, it was during a scrimmage where
Huh.
I was locked up on the end, and then the linebacker came behind me and went airborne and flew right into my legs while I was planted, and so I just heard everything go, and in that moment, I knew exactly right when it happened that my season was done, and
Oh,
I remember the pain that I felt, like, physically, it wasn't near the pain that I felt mentally, emotionally, because that hole was so dark where, you're just trying to find whatever light you can to pull you out of it, and, for me, fortunately, I've always been in college, I had a mindset training coach, Craig Manning, and because of that training, I had conditioned my subconscious to pull into positivity all the time. And so what happened was no matter the situation, I always found the positive in it. So, and it's weird, and it kinda hit me just literally a few months ago when I was thinking about it. I'm like, "Why am I like that?" And it's because I had put the work in actually, where every day I write down, you know, 3 things that went well that day. And so,
mm,
because of that data, 'cause I'm an analytics major, so I know how data works,
yeah,
and I know how to, like, change, your finances. You need to know where you're at, so you gotta track it. If I wanna change my eating, I gotta track it. Well, if I wanna change
yeah,
my mindset, I gotta track it. And
yeah.
so, for me, it's
Well, and I want to pause you there for a second, because I got to ask you, because you hit on something that was huge for a lot of people, and that is there's a lot of people right now that are struggling, and they have circumstances in their life, right? It might be physical, might be mental, might be a job loss, it might be family. There's suicide, depression rates, off the charts. But the hardest part for most of them is how they have to deal with it in the mindset. So when you said that, that rang true, because it's like you were physically broken, but the mindset was the hardest thing. And you made a point that I really want to emphasize for people, and that is you preconditioned your mind before you needed to. So you obviously were investing your time in personal development and mindset, I said back in college. And how much do you think that really helped you? Because you said that made a big difference, but had you not been doing that before you needed to do it, do you feel like it would have been just even, 100 times more of a struggle?
oh, it would have been detrimental had I not been training my mindset and training how to find, the good things each day, how to get the most out of each day because I just didn't to me when that happened, like I said, it was really tough, but literally the next day I'm like, "Okay, what do I need to do to get better?" So I just didn't wanna waste time. And I think that's one thing that you gain when you get that mindset, you
Yeah.
gain time and because you
Yeah.
make the most of it. And so I think
Yeah.
that, without it, like you said, the preconditioning of it was key. Seriously,
Well, so what were you doing? You tend to write down what happened well during the day. What other types of things were you doing at the time to really just kind of overcome the challenge? Were there other mindset things? Were you around mentors or reading books or like what was your daily rituals you were doing?
yeah. So I was always, write I had a journal and I'd write
Okay.
in my journal and I would write down things I wanted to work on, the things that I did well. And man, that helped so much because with my mindset, I was one of those guys where I was very, very analytical and very I wanted everything to be perfect. So
Yeah.
for me, I had to
Yeah.
realize, I'm not gonna be perfect,
Yeah.
I'm just not.
But see,
But
most people that are like that, I'm very much like that, like perfectionist. They're
yeah,
harder on themselves. And so what happens is you end up being negative on yourself sometimes
yeah,
versus positive. But if you're conditioning your mind for positive, that's what I really love what you just said. You're training your mind to be positive and
yeah,
see the positive. Because when you're writing in your journal the things you love each day or what you did right or whatever, it's different than how am I screwing up? How am I making
yeah.
mistakes? And so training your mind is a huge thing. And I think you made a great point. So take us back there again. So was this a long road, a struggle? Like you're out the season. Like that's not you might have the next day been looking for positive, but that had to have been a little bit tough to keep yourself going.
Yeah, and it's a lengthy road, honestly, and, for me, I just but I know I was kinda, again, preconditioned in a way because in high school, my senior year, I, tore my ACL in the 2nd game, and so when this had happened, you know, I learned that it's just a day by day thing, and you have to be very present because it's so easy to have your mind slide to the future, and it's easy to have it, you know, dwell in the past, and that's where regret is, and so being able to really be able to have my mind focused every day in the present, it was such a game changer, honestly, and I just kept going one day at a time, and eventually, the season's over, and I'm back running, and next minute, I'm
Man, I'm
back.
telling you, it's so you do make it sound really easy, and so I'm going to unpack it for a few people because you're saying things that look, guys. If you're listening to this podcast episode, success leaves clues, right? He's constantly, I can't tell how many times you've said daily, right? Being present, because I think you're right. I think the reason it's a struggle is people are thinking in the future, they're not going to get back, or now I did all this hard work, it's not going to make sense. But you were day to day to day. And then eventually the season was back, right? So I love that you said daily. And I love that you said, be present. What do you do is your journal the way you help yourself to stay present? Like, how do you stay present?
Yeah.
Because that's a hard one, man. People are always, regretting the past, worried about the future, right?
Yeah, no, for sure. I think, like, when you said the word unpack, it made me think about every day I unpack my mind into my journal, and
Mm,
so it brings me right there to the then and now, and, like, what am I doing now to get better? Because you make so many decisions every day that affect you over time, even though you
yeah.
can't see it, and so being able to be in the right state of mind to make the right decisions, one thing that no one ever thinks about, like, when you get hurt is man, gaining weight as an athlete because you're not running as much. So I have
Yeah.
to make the right decisions of what I'm putting into my mouth and and
Yeah.
all of that.
Yeah.
Like that's hard to
And
do.
at the very moment, because you can't affect like the whole week, the whole month. You can only do it right now, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just like without
Wow.
having mindset focused on right there now, it's really hard, right? And I mean, it helps too because when you start focusing in the present, your attitude changes and your attitude
Yeah.
bring every day to rehab, every day to
Yeah.
work, every day to your business. It changes because you're way more present and you think about other people, helping other people. It's just a game changer.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I love that you said that, and I think you also made a really interesting point that kind of takes us to another section of what I wanted to talk about with you, and that is you're training your mind, and you're training your mind to be present, and so you're able to overcome these obstacles. But I think in a sense, you were also, from when we were talking before, you were training your mind to be aware and open to possibilities and to opportunities. Because take us a little forward now. So like you're playing in the NFL, you've been moved over and you sign a contract with the Green Bay Packers, and then you sort of tell them a story about how you kind of stumble across your teammate and start to identify other opportunities. Because that to me is pretty interesting too, because most people wouldn't see that opportunity happen. They wouldn't even notice it.
Yeah, this was right before the Packers. I was at the Jets, and I had a teammate, Brandon Copeland, and he was always coming in on his earbuds talking, and I was like, "What is he doing?" And I just went up to him, and I'm like, "Hey, what are you talking about every day when you come into the building and when you're leaving the building?" He's just talking, I don't know,
Just on his
random
phone, like,
on his phone. Yeah, I had no idea what's going on. And he said, "Oh, I'm running my businesses. I have a home flipping business, and I have some other businesses." And I was like, "No way!" And all of a sudden it hit me, like I could do that. Like I can do more. And and because that ceiling is just invisible, right? I had built
yeah.
an invisible ceiling, thinking this is all I can do. But really, it's like no. There's more time in the day. There's more time, especially in the off season. Where you can't train for 24 hours, right? Like you got to rest, and you got to. Those are good opportunities to take advantage of. Learning about investing, financial literacy. How to build.
So before you make that sound as easy as it is, I feel like there's people that they go their whole lives and they're so myopically focused on their dream, right? Because there's this challenge now. You're like, okay, focus on your dream and accomplish your goals, but then how do you stay open minded to other things? Because see, people get, and I'm sure with athletes as well, I've talked to many that have said, I'm here and now like this is all I am. Like this is what I am. And how do you keep yourself? And I think being present is part of it and training your mind, but how did you keep yourself open to opportunities and to feel like, I'm more than just an athlete. Like
Yeah.
I can be an investor. I can be a mindset coach. I can be, what are these things? Were you always that way? Or do you think it's back to the conditioning of the fact that you were so open to your mindset and training yourself in a personal growth way that you were open to it? What were you wired that way? Or was it just like, cause most people wouldn't have noticed their buddy on the phone. They would have been like, what are you doing?
For me, one thing that I feel like is one of like I've been wired to see and do is build relationships. And so when I see people, I'm very aware of, people and what they're doing around me and just building, relationships. My favorite thing to do is build relationships. And so when I saw him, walking in, and I just asked him, because that was very common for me, just to be like, "Hey, what are you doing?" And just strike up a conversation. Like because of that, it opened my mind to, oh my gosh, there's a whole new world out there that I hadn't really been a part of, but it kind of rang true to me in the sense of, oh, I can do this. I was inspired
So
to.
did you think that right off the bat, or were you like, man, I don't know if I could ever do that? Like, did you just feel like, no, I could do anything? Or what was your initial reaction?
I think for me, the reaction was, is that possible? Yeah,
Nah, I
like
like it.
is he really doing it? Like,
Yeah.
is that real? And it was, and then I immediately just kept asking him more,
I
and
love it.
I just
No, I love that because
mentors.
we're always, our thoughts obviously completely create our life, right? We talk about that a lot on this podcast, but people are like, well, but how do you change your thoughts, right? What's the questions you're asking, right? Because if
Very
you're
true.
asking, is that possible? What is he doing? Why is it going on? And so I love that you said that because, like I've said over and over, guys, like, listen, success leaves clues. I mean, he's asking questions, opportunities present themselves. So did you like, was he just like, dude, stop giving me a hard time? Like, were you just asking all kinds of questions trying to find out, and that just took you down this other path? Talk to us a little bit about, was there a transition period that you started thinking, you know what, I want to be in business and follow my passions versus being an athlete? Or was that decision made for you in the sense that like, injuries, or like, how did that transition happen? Because
Yeah.
there's a lot of people that are, I think in their life, they've gone their whole life trying to work towards something. And they're maybe at that point where they're like, I maybe either need to do something else, or they're saying something inside me is like, I can have more. I can do something more. Maybe they have confidence issues, but they want to do more. And that was the point you were at, where you were either needing to do something or you wanted to do something. So walk us through that a little bit.
Yeah, I think, for me, I just that man, once I started asking those questions, then my thought process started to go to, let's apply this. Let's take it and turn it into action and see what comes of it, because
Yeah.
I don't know. And
Yeah.
so and that's kind of like that leap of faith. I think a lot of people kind of freeze at the edge of the cliff, but it's like, no, just jump. You can learn on the way. And so for
Yeah.
me, yeah, I just was like, okay, well, let's start investing in real estate. And so, that's where it all started. And I started to uh get in the
Did you
right.
ever question your ability? Like a lot of people have this like imposter syndrome. They don't know they're confident or whatever. Do you find you have times where you just kind of question your confidence or your abilities to do things, but you just push yourself anyway? Or what do you do with
Yeah.
times like that?
I think a lot of it comes down to like knowing yourself. And for me, I knew I I was good at building relationships. I was good with people. And so I knew if I was going to go out and
Mm.
invest and do all this stuff, I'm going to still pull to my strength. And so for me, I just kept to that my strengths, which was people. And, I got in the right rooms, talked to the right people, continue to ask questions until I felt like my first real estate deal, I was, so nervous. You're still nervous because it's something new, it's fresh.
Yeah.
But I was, I had thought it through thoroughly. I talked a lot to different people that know more than me. Like, because I
Yeah.
know there's a lot of people that know more than me.
Yeah.
I just, wasn't afraid to ask those questions. And people, I think, get stuck a lot of the time. Then
Well, but I think you made another great point is when you play to your strength, you can get through those stuck times. It's when you so many people try to be something they're not
yeah,
or overcome a challenge that they will never have as a strength. But if you play to your strength and you love people and you love to build relationships, that carried you through a lot because you were just associating with the right people, right?
yeah, yeah. And I was able
That's
to
awesome.
find the right people and then make that jump, make that investment. And then from there, what was cool is, I've always been big on, really always being a learner. I don't
Yeah.
care what situation, what field, I'm gonna learn something. And so when it came to that field of real estate investing, I told my partner that I invested with, "Hey, I'm gonna be asking you questions now because I wanna learn how this works." He said, "Great." That was a really good sign for me where, oh, he's
So you were
like-minded.
open with them and said, look, man, I don't know everything. I'm going to be asking a lot of questions, but that's just the way it
That's
is.
that's just the and for me, that's kinda how it has to be because I wanna learn,
Yeah.
and so he was like, "Great. Well, let me teach you, all this stuff and through my own experience," and that's really what kicked it off, honestly, to, having a good experience
How
to.
did you meet your partner? Like, what was it, a relationship you knew for a while, you were friends for a while, or someone new that you met that you structured a partnership with?
Yeah, it was someone new that I met who had been doing
Wow.
these, real estate deals, one-off deals with different people, and so
Yeah.
for me, and that was the thing, I met with them quite a bit, honestly, just asking questions. I met them probably 8 times.
Oh, even before you were partners.
Yeah, even before we're partners,
Oh,
I was
wow.
just
Oh,
with
okay.
just to talk because I wanted to get to know him, right? Like, 'cause that's like
It's funny,
that
people don't realize a lot of successful people, they love to share. They love when people
skill,
ask them
yeah.
questions. So many people are afraid to ask questions, but like, how are you going to get the answers? But so many successful people want to share what they've learned, right?
Oh, yeah, and once you realize that, the floodgates open and you can I really love sitting down and asking questions to people that just are incredibly, they're just so successful, and,
Yeah.
"Okay, this is what you do is awesome. I'm just interested to learn from you," like.
Well, and that's a success principle of being teachable. So many people now try to go out into the marketplace and put up this front of, I'm a big baller, I know everything, and I'm the expert. When humility, being humble, being teachable, being coachable, um, goes a long way. People think
Yeah,
it's a weakness, but at the end of the day, you would be surprised, and I think you would agree with that. I think people would be surprised how much that humility actually will come into play, and people are more willing to help you than if you're a know-it-all and you think you know everything, but you want to find out what they know. You know what I mean?
That's that yo, you hit it around the head. That's exactly right. Like, people peop people are a lot more open when you're more open,
Yeah.
and yeah, you ask those right questions.
I
So,
love it. I love it. So now we don't have a lot of time, but you're transitioning into some things that you're pretty passionate about. So let's talk about that. What are you going to be launching soon here? What's coming up on the agenda for Bronson?
you know what? I'm gonna be launching my Young Athlete Society, and I'm launching it with the hopes to help young athletes with their mindset training, but also build their entire ecosystem where you have a place for parents to learn how to be an asset within that ecosystem. Young
Okay.
coaches about teaching, because for me, I've been through, high school, college, NFL, and there are cultures and teams that are way more elite when it comes to coaching, when
Mm,
it comes to mindset training. And so it's all these things I want to be able to provide for, you
mm.
know, high school kids and younger, their parents.
Did you have a particular reason that you went that direction, or was it just you felt like you had the strengths to be able to help kids, or was there a particular reason you went that direction versus just training, for example, or helping NFL players transition into business or whatever? What made you decide to go the route of kids and young athletes?
For me, I wanted to go that route because as a I look back at myself when I was, a young kid and high school athlete, and I was just open to learning. I looked up to, college athletes so much, professional athletes. I wanted to listen to them, but I could never get access, right?
Uh,
And I had a little bit more access because my dad was a football coach, but I wanted more even. And I wanted to have conversations with them and hear their thoughts and what they do, And so I just in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, I want to help these young athletes. Let's focus on them where, the lessons that they learn, because there's more athletes that play sports at the high school level. And as you go up, it gets right a little tighter.
yeah, right, right.
So it's like, let's take the lessons that you have learned. And if you're done playing sports in high school, well, when you go on to college,
Mm,
you've taken this huge, amount of, life training, mindset
yeah,
training, and let's help you transition it because sports just teaches you so many lessons that you can take
yeah.
into, other careers.
Well, you obviously have a great background going up through all those levels, but then also sports and business and now investing and whatnot. So I think those are great lessons. And I agree with you. I think at the end of the day, you got to follow something that you could be passionate about, you could be excited about. And, you're doing that exact thing. You're taking sports that you love, training and mindset that you love, business, and putting it all together. And I know it's not out there yet. What we'll do is we'll probably, link some people to this young athlete society and we'll push them back your way. But I tell you, what I love about that is that you are going to help kids start to train and condition their mind before they need it, like you did.
Yeah.
And so that's a great cause, man. That's a great thing to focus on. And that gives you some passion. And look, you've been married 9 years, have a couple of kids. And so yeah, it does it make you feel like you're giving back, but also still being able to take advantage of opportunities in the marketplace? Is that just a pretty exciting thing for you?
Yeah, it's just I mean, I grew up my whole life being in that space, going to my dad was recruiting high school kids for years. I used to go with them as a little boy, and I've just been in this sector for so long, and I just wanna be able to continue to be I don't know if my son will play sports. I mean, maybe he does, and I don't know if my daughter will or not. They can do whatever they want, but, it's just nice to be in that area helping
Your
out.
kids are how old right now?
They're little, they're
Okay,
3
so they're young.
one, but he's starting to play sports. He's on the soccer field.
He's like
Around.
getting a football in his for his birthday and everything. Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah.
Well, listen, I know there's a lot of things like on the edge. There's things you probably can't even talk about. You're doing a lot of stuff with your real estate, your investing, and also even blockchain, which we don't have time to get into. But I'd love to be able to have people kind of follow you. So, where's the best place for them to follow you?
Yeah. You can follow me on my Instagram account, bkafusi90, and on my Twitter as well, it's bkafusi90. So,
We'll put that in the
George
show
Twitter.
notes as well. Yeah. So, guys, go listen, go follow. This guy's a class act, and you're going to learn a lot as well. And I appreciate you sharing those lessons because, like I said, I think you have done a phenomenal job of making those transitions. I think if we had more time, we could dig deeper into a lot of the struggle. But I
Yeah,
think that what I love about what you said is because everybody's got the stories of struggle and overcoming, and triumphing over their obstacles. But I love that nugget. I don't know if I've heard people talk about conditioning yourself before you need it, even though that's an obvious principle. I really love that. And I think that it not only conditioned you before you needed it, but then it set you up and opened you up to how you view things, opening opportunities and playing to your strengths and your passion as well. So those are all great messages. What else, before we go here, is there anything else you'd like to share kind of with the listeners or anything else you have going on? Anything else you'd like to add?
I mean, really, I just, grateful for everyone that's listening, and I just, I hope everyone just never gives up, because I feel like times get tough. That's when you got to put fuel on the fire, and so I think that's something that I just want to leave with everyone to remember that.
Yeah, well, and being present is a great way to do that. I think you hit it right on the head. So, anyway, listen, everybody, we appreciate you listening. Hit that like and subscribe, and hit me up on the Daily Mastermind on Facebook or Instagram. Let us know what you're struggling with. Let us know what you're working on. We're here to help. I'll always respond to messages, as most of you know, because I get a lot of them. But we look forward to talking with you more later in the week, and make sure you stay tuned in because we'll be dropping some messages from David Goggins. We've got a couple of lifestyle deals. But once again, Bronson Kafusi, appreciate you being on. And everybody, we look forward to it. Just remember, it's never too late to start creating the life that you're meant to live. Let's do what we can to practice on a daily basis. So, George Wright III, this has been the Daily Mastermind. We'll talk with you soon.